This ceremony is obviously taking place in quite like a significant time and off the heels of the report in which you said that 41% of youth music projects are at risk. What would you say are the main threats that they are facing right now?
I think the sign of the times is around cost of living. So the cost of living crisis means that it's more expensive for these charities to run. I think they're faced with increased demand from young people who have a huge appetite for making music of all different kinds, and it's responding to that huge demand. And I think in the kind of ecosystem, sometimes this grassroots youth music sector is forgotten about, and more attention is paid to buildings and other aspects of the arts that get a bigger slice of the money. So I think there's an imbalance about where the money goes, and there's also the cost of living crisis and increasing demand for this work in youth music spaces, which young people absolutely love.
Do you think there's a relationship as well between cuts to music education as well, and the fact that if young people can't access that in schools, that they need to sort of look elsewhere?
Yeah, so in schools, in terms of music education in schools, there's a cut in the number of teachers and a cut in the number of teaching hours. And I think the importance that's placed on it by head teachers, governors of schools and parents is diminished. But there's a real contradiction for me, because actually music in young people's life, it's their top favourite thing, and we know that. So whilst there's like difficulties, it's also up to the education system to really respond to young people where they're at with music and where they're currently at. And then I think you would get increased engagement, and also the head teacher and the school would go, okay, so this is great for music, but it's socially and personally and well-being wise really helping young people. So it needs to kind of go right up the agenda and not be seen somehow as an unimportant subject. For young people, it's probably the top subject in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing as well. I feel like this sector is so undervalued as well, or by people who deem it as frivolous or unimportant. But then absolutely everything that you said there, what people gain in terms of like the passion they're able to find, and even just in ways beyond that, even if you don't necessarily make it your career, you gain so much from it in terms of like building confidence and community, and that's everything. And that's, young people need that so much.
Yeah, and probably from a youth music perspective, that's one of the top things for us, the social benefits of making music, how it makes you feel, how it'll help address situations that you might be in, as well as making music, and for some, going for a career in music. But our work is so framed around early years, early childhood, right the way through to young adulthood because of that reason. So I think schools can do more to embrace young people's inherent love of music and start where they're at. And then I think you would get increased engagement with the school curriculum. And probably, I'd take a guess, you'd get increased engagement with the number of students wanting to do GCSE music and A-level music, if they know it's talking about music that means something to them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I did GCSE music myself. I think there was one lesson I think we did. I think was I sort of still think about. They had a lesson on music of the 1990s. Then we played Nirvana and Green Day, and like that was amazing to me, because I was like feeling myself seen in that lesson that you not necessarily experience with other subjects.
Exactly, and the benefit of music is that in school you can start exactly where young people are at, because I can guarantee their love of music is really high. So if that love is taken seriously as soon as they walk into the classroom, and what a great place to start.
Yeah.
And of course the teacher's role is to broaden horizons and increase knowledge and skills, but don't in any way come across in a school that you're dismissing a young person's love of music because it might not be something the teacher knows about. So you've got to come with almost like relinquish control and let young people shine with what they're talking about in music in their lives.
Yeah, no, especially if they don't always necessarily feel listened to elsewhere. But then sort of looking towards the future then, and where the industry's at and where you think things need to be improved. Like, what would you like to sort of see happen in the next 5 years in the sector, and how do you think youth music can help in that?
I think it's about establishing a collective strategy amongst music organisations, both in education and industry, so that we're punching above our weight. Sadly, with the industry, because there's so much competition, it leads to huge fragmentation. So there's lots of different businesses doing lots of things, but it's often not coordinated and it's not a strategy. So something like a national music strategy, which acknowledges its role in terms of the economics of music, but also the health and well-being and the social benefits of music, is put together a strategy. And youth music could be right at the heart of that because we straddle all those worlds. So I think that's a kind of strategic point. I think in terms of where the money goes, you know, buildings, institutions are of course important, but I think for us, there's a step before playing your music in a building or a venue. There's a place where you make it. There's a place where you make that music and create it in a safe environment like a youth club where you're surrounded by good people and friends to make your music. So I think we want to up the agenda to say that's exactly where it really starts. And then that music can go into venues that hopefully will be thriving as well. So I think a lot of this is about strategy. Rather than the music industry, because one of its drawbacks is it being so competitive. Sometimes there's not enough cooperation and kind of kindness and collaboration working together, because it benefits us all if you get that right.
Yeah, no, exactly. And if there's that feeling of scarcity, then that kind of fosters that feeling of cooperation. Whereas if it feels like there is enough for everybody, you know, that is sort of abundance mindset.
Yeah, and it's the kind of creative economy of the UK. You know, great diversity, great inclusion is great for music. It absolutely is. I firmly believe that. It's not like an either or.
Yeah.
But there's something a bit that could be done in music-wise that really is a convening of a national strategy, and youth music can be really at the centre of that.
Absolutely. And obviously I know that a lot of people who are part of the Drowned in Sound community obviously really care about this sort of stuff, and I mean, especially when it comes to like grassroots spaces and things like that. But like what would you say to the Drowned in Sound audience who want to be able to support this? Like what can ordinary fans do to help?
I think on one level, we've got Rescue the Roots going on. It's hit 73% of target since launching publicly in March. So, you know, we're close to reaching the 1 million, which youth music is matching with the 1 million from our reserves. So you double your money. So music fans, think about where it started for you in your life. That's what we're supporting with young people. And you can donate. You can really donate on our website in a variety of different ways to these youth music spaces. I think the second thing is that kind of change-making understanding together by raising the profile of this work, because it's often the forgotten sector, but it's probably where it really all starts. So it's a mixture of giving, you know, give a donation. It doesn't have to be huge, but it's also telling your friends about youth music, telling your colleagues, and remembering where music really starts, which is in the grassroots youth music spaces.
I think that's something that I've been sort of thinking about lately, is that there's so much going on. Like we think that people arrived on the scene overnight. No, they've got to start somewhere.
Right.
There's so much stuff that we don't see that people deserve to see.
Right, exactly. And if you look at all the artists that are coming through, like, you know, British, UK-based artists, a lot of them have started in youth spaces like Alt Black Era, English Teacher, Ezra Collective, all came out of spaces supported by youth music. That's no coincidence. But it's that very sector that leads real nurturing, and kind of it's a sort of A&R process, but as well as discovering talent, if you like, it's also the place where young people can be really happy.
That's such an important thing, especially when it comes to having a third space, having a creative outlet, having somewhere that you can go rather than feeling isolated and like in a very sort of online world as well.
Yeah, and what we're seeing in a lot of the research and insights that we're doing is that I think there's more of a need from everybody, and particularly young people, to want to be together in places that are welcoming. You know, you walk through the door, your music's welcomed, you're welcomed from whatever background you are, and what an amazing, important place to start. And I think there's a real desire from young people to find those places and be part of that. Because the online world, of course, has a lot of opportunity, but there are a lot of setbacks which are well documented in terms of mental health and well-being. And a place that's real in real time with real people making music is something really, really special. And that really sums up what youth music is about.
Yeah, and that vote of confidence can be something incredibly valuable if you find somewhere that you've got and people have faith in you and you feel like you can actually make it happen even when wider society is telling you you can't.
Exactly. That's what I mean about starting where young people are at,
Yeah.
you know, and really sort of understanding where young people are at because, you know, of course, they're amazing, doing incredible things with real ingenuity, but it needs backing. It doesn't just happen by coincidence. And I think the added benefit, it'll then create great music for this country, which will then help the industry. So it's a win-win for everybody, but everybody needs to collaborate.